Heyo, Packer fans, what's going on? Welcome to the Packers Trilogy podcast presented by the Wisconsin Sports Trilogy, the podcast for diehard Packer fans by diehard Packer fans. I am your host, Trevor. You can find me on Twitter at Bender_Trevor, and I am joined, as always, with my good buddy Tyler, aka T Plush. Tyler is the host of the Brewers Trilogy podcast and also a contributor for reviewing the brew for Fansided. And you can find him on Twitter at Tyler Kurth. As always, you can find us on all of the social medias, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, at Trilogy_pod. And make sure you look us up on YouTube. We have extra content coming out there. We're the Wisconsin Sports Trilogy podcast there on YouTube. So make sure you guys checking that out. Hitting the subscribe button there. It would really, truly mean a lot if you guys would do that. Today we are here to recap a rather lackluster performance, but a win nonetheless against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Nothing overly impressive at all. Before we start talking about this game, though, Tyler, how are you doing?
I feel like today's Packer game just sums up my day in general as well. Like, it wasn't pretty, but overall I was somewhat effective. I had to get up at like 6:30 this morning after not going to bed till midnight because the dog woke me up. And then I cleaned a few things, and then I started drinking old fashions at 10. And then as soon as the Packer game was over, my head was on the pillow. And now here I am recording, drinking some hot cocoa, which you've already mocked me for, but I feel like showing off my one in the Minion cup, so don't judge me. Haters gonna hate.
Yeah. Well, that might sum up the Packers game pretty closely, I think. It was, like I said, I think lackluster is a good way to put it. Coming in, this was 6-2 versus 1-7. And this was a game the Packers clearly should and probably needed to win. And they did not look like they were interested for the vast majority of this game. And you could probably even say just the whole game. It just at times, it just didn't look like they were really into it, except maybe outside of that second quarter, which Packers should have had 21 points in that second quarter. That was bullshit that they called back that touchdown for Tay. I definitely thought that was a touchdown. And I didn't see much of a hold there, but the officiating was terrible overall, and we probably got more of the benefit of the doubt. And as I'm sure you've seen all of the jokes already, we had refs out there blocking for us. So, that's pretty good. And actually, people keep saying that, but if you watch the video, that defender had just ran into the back of the ref. He like saw him and started running right at him and pushed him over. So that really was do not think that was the ref blocking. The ref's trying to do his job. He's just not fast enough to do his job when you're talking about NFL athletes. Let's go through and do our normal recap quick, and then we'll get into our talking points. First drive, Packers get the ball. 3 and outs. They punt. Then the Jags get a field goal. They only have to go 29 yards on that one. Packers get a first down on their next drive, but have to punt. Jags punt. Packers punt. Jags punt. And then the big 91-yard touchdown drive that was actually only 4 plays, thanks to an absolute bomb from Aaron Rodgers to MVS. And thank you again, ref. Next drive for the Jags, they go 14 yards and have to punt. And then the Packers get the ball back, go 3 and out, and allow a punt return for a touchdown. Packers get the ball back after that, go 81 yards, 13 plays, and get a touchdown on that one, and that was Aaron Rodgers' run. Packers get an interception, get the ball back. You expect them. You just felt like the game switched there. At that interception, all of a sudden they get a big kick return or punt return for a touchdown. Packers slow, methodically go down, score, get an interception on the next drive, and you're like, okay, this game's pretty much over, right? But like I said, touchdown was nullified by that holding penalty, which, yeah, he kind of got turned around, but that I didn't see much of a hold. He got turned around. He didn't really hold him. So I thought that was a little iffy on that call there. They end up getting the field goal on that drive to make it 10-17. End of the half, the Jaguars called a timeout because they thought maybe they could get another kick return for a touchdown. At the end of the half, Jags get the ball back. They punt, and you're like, okay, this is definitely the Packers game. They're going to win this. Then the Packers one play, there's actually a very good play, and you're like, yes, let's go. I literally screamed, let's go, Devontae. And then he puts the ball on the ground. They get the ball back. They score a touchdown to tie it up. Packers turn it over on downs in the next one. Jaguars punt. Aaron Rodgers throws the most ridiculous interception, I think, of his career. I don't know at all what the fuck he was looking at on that play. Jags get the ball from that and score a field goal, 7 plays, 43 yards to put them ahead 20-17. Packers march down the field on the next one, 7 plays, 75 yards. That was that Davante Adams touchdown, which I'm still, like, when that happened, I thought for sure he was getting a concussion, a shoulder stinger, something with the way he fell on that play. Make it 24-20 in the Packers' favor. Then it's punt. Then the Jaguars turn it over on downs. Packers get the ball back to kneel it out the last 2 plays. So let's talk about this game, Tyler. What are your overall thoughts and your first talking points for this, again, I'm going to say it again, lackluster performance from the Green Bay Packers?
Yeah, and it all starts offensively, right? Like, the defense played good, but if the offense would have showed up like we would expect, we'd have a completely different storyline to talk about right now. And It doesn't help when you constantly lose the field position battle. They were pinned, inside their own 10, 3 different occasions. You mentioned the turnovers, the Adams fumble, the Rodgers INT. So those are very uncharacteristic turnovers by the Packers there. And then you're going to combine this in the fact that essentially the Jaguars did what no other teams have done all year long, and that's really you contained Aaron Jones and you contained Davante Adams without giving up big plays. I mean, Aaron Jones finishes 13 carries, 46 yards, along of 20. And for receptions, 5 receptions, 49 yards, along of 14 in the receiving game. So most teams are going to take that. Davante Adams, it felt like all of his plays were on RPOs, and they just weren't working. Finishes with 8 catches, 66 yards, along of 22 on that 1 touchdown catch. But you have to credit the Jaguars' defense here. They played a lot more physical than the Packers. And then Henderson, who was guarding Davante Adams, made him work for just absolutely everything. Even that touchdown catch, like that, he could very easily drop that. Like you saw him drop a few passes early in the game as well. So I will tip my cap a little bit to the Jaguars. They made us work, but I was just really dumbfounded how they managed to take away our 2 playmakers in this game.
Yeah, to correct you, Tyler, that 22-yard pass was actually the one he fumbled on. It was not the touchdown.
Yeah, okay.
The touchdown was the 6-yard touchdown to Davante. And I think you're right. It was really weird. I talked about this, and I said it over and over and over again on Thursday on the preview podcast of this Jaguars defense is not going to be able to stop the Packers. And they did a very, very good job against one of the best offenses in the league. Allowing 24 points, that defense did just about everything they could have against a very good offense and gave themselves a chance to win this football game. They came out and outplayed the Packers. Now, the stats, the final score doesn't indicate that, because you look total yards in favor of Green Bay, 395 to 260. Yards per play, 6.6 for Green Bay, 4.3 for Jacksonville. Passing yards were 315 to 151. They did do a little bit better in the rush game, 109 to 80 for the Packers. So there was this, the stats definitely leaned heavily Green Bay, which leads you to believe that they should have won by a little bit more than what they did. But the defense did just enough for this Jaguars team to keep them in the game. And it was just, a young rookie quarterback and not a ton of weapons. You know, DJ Chark has been good this year. Not much to speak of there offensively for him. 4 receptions, 56 yards. You love that if you're the Packers. Keelan Cole, 5 receptions, 47 yards, and a touchdown. You'll take that if he doesn't have that big punt return for a touchdown, right? Chris Conley, kind of the same stat line, 4 receptions, 43 yards, and not a lot after that. So with your best 2 cornerbacks out, the Packers defense, I thought, actually did a pretty good job. Yes, there was missed tackles still. Of course, there was missed tackles. Got bailed out by some holding calls, one of which was very, very clear. The other, I'm still not sure why they called it. So the Packers definitely did benefit from some of the officiating in this one. But, you know, the tackling is still a concern for me. But this defense definitely didn't lose the game. And I predicted 21 points for the Jags. Tyler, I think you predicted 17. The defense was not at all the reason why the Packers were there. This game was this close. This was the offense, like you said. And Aaron Rodgers, if you take away the interception, I bet you he has like a 125, 130 passer rating. He's got a 108 passer rating, still definitely respectable. You know, his yards per attempt were 9.6. That's very good. It just was so weird that they were moving the ball, and for some reason just like couldn't score enough points. And even the drives where they do turn the ball over, the interception, yeah, they moved the ball a little bit, but 33 yards, it's not like they moved all the way up the field and threw it in the red zone, the interception. And the fumble, as I mentioned before, was on the first play of the drive. So, yeah, they were going to move the ball. It was 22 yards until he fumbles the football. So it's a really weird game, and I'm struggling to figure out why the Packers only scored 24 points in this one. Because, yeah, the offense didn't score like they should have, but they did move the ball. It's not like they were completely stifled by this defense.
Yeah, the stats definitely are very deceiving, as you're alluding to, and so is this next stat I'm going to tell you about, because MVS, 4 catches, 149 yards, and a touchdown. Obviously, that 78-yarder helps that, but since the trade deadline, MVS is now 6 catches, 202 yards, 3 touchdowns. That's totally number 2 material right there, man. Don't you agree?
See, I had the video. Our first video on YouTube I put out was about MVS. MVS is a good receiver. The speed, it allows you to have games like this where you have 4 receptions, 149 yards. You know, Devontae goes out for a little bit. They were scheming to when Devontae was out was MVS, because that speed is truly a weapon. His route running, like I mentioned in that video, go check it out if you haven't watched it. But his route running has been better this year. And it was in the beginning of the year. I still feel like it's pretty good. It's not Devontae Adams level good, but with his speed, it doesn't have to be. It's just his hands. That is the biggest thing for MVS, is he needs to get his hands better. And that's a big concern, and rightfully so. And Packer fans have been complaining about it. And, you know, probably rightfully so. He has to get better at that. But this is what happens when he is that player. When he's catching the football, he can make this offense go. It's kind of weird to think about. You know, you think about Devontae Adams, Aaron Jones, you know, the secondary guys of Robert Tonyan. You know, you think even Jamal Williams, Tyler Ervin. And, you know, when Alan Lazard's back, you'll put him in that kind of secondary playmakers too. And then MVS is kind of that tertiary piece, but him playing good and catching the football, more importantly, if he catches this football, this offense can be incredible. Because if MVS catches the football, he will be that Will Fuller addition. Because the consistency hasn't been there. But if we get a consistent MVS that's catching the football, he will be a Will Fuller type, because that's what Will Fuller is. Will Fuller is a little bit overall better receiver, But the biggest thing with MVS is just catching the football. He's going to be open because Matt LaFleur is going to scheme him open from time to time, and he's going to be open because he's fast. You just have to, you put Devontae Adams, Allen Lazard when he's back healthy on one side of the field and MVS on the other, well, they're shading coverage to that other side of the field, and MVS just has to beat his guy and catch the football. And if he's catching the football, he's going to beat his guy 9 times out of 10 because he's just that fast. So him being consistent can be a big, big part of that. And I'm glad you brought up MVS because he really kept this offense going. Devontae Adams, he had a pretty good game and made catches when he needed to, but he struggled a little bit, had a couple drops. I think the defense really played him pretty well and made everything tough for him and had to work for it, like you mentioned earlier, Tyler. But MVS didn't. MVS, when he was given an opportunity, he took it and run. He had 6 targets, one of which was that interception. He had 4 receptions. I can't really remember. I don't think he had a drop in this one as that last one. So I don't know if that last target was just off target or what the case was. I can't remember specifically. But if this is the MVS we get and we get Allen Lazard back, this is going to be a really fucking fun offense to watch, even more so than it typically already is, save this game and the Bucs game probably, and the Vikings game.
Yeah, I mean, this offense just has so many weapons. Like, Tunyon's been quiet here for the last couple of weeks. His only spectacular play today was when the defender fell down and he was just wide open. But when everyone's healthy, who do you stop? I mean, that's kind of what it was at the beginning of the season when we were full strength. So I am fully looking forward to seeing that offense again because I don't really want to see what happened against the Jags again. And everyone makes a big deal out of, it's windy and rainy at Lambeau. Dude, this is what we live for. The Packers live for those games. We want them. Sure, there was no A.J. Dillon or anything in this game, the big bruiser you think who should play in these types of situations. But the guys, there's just 2 weird fluke games here, I think, from the Vikings and the Jaguars, at least offensively. And plus now we have David Bakhtiari locked up for many, many years, which was an extremely weird leak to come midway through the 4th quarter during the game. It was just bizarre.
Yeah, I'm looking. Pro Football Talk is where I saw it from. Actually, I saw it from you, Tyler, because I hadn't even got a notification from any of the ESPN, Bleacher Report, any of the apps I have on my phone. I didn't get any notifications, and I was like, what's going on? So I looked on Twitter. Pro Football Talk tweeted it out, saying the Packers signed left tackle David Bakhtiari to a new contract just before midnight last night, 4-year extension. I'm not really sure if it was just before midnight last night, why we are hearing about it in the 4th quarter of the game, but that's what happened. And then he proceeded to say Bakhtiari's deal has new money value of $23 million per year. That makes him the highest paid offensive lineman in league history. That number is bonkers, wild, absolutely crazy. David Bakhtiari had mentioned that number, and I guess we can thank Bill O'Brien for being an idiot and trading 2 first-round picks to get Laremy Tunsil and then not signing a deal right there. And now Tunsil can just sit back and say, I'm just going to put this number on there and you're going to sign it because you didn't just give 2 first-round picks away for a rental. I know you didn't do that, so you're going to have to sign what I want. And now David Bakhtiari, best left tackle in football for the last 5 years, is saying, I want to be the highest paid guy. And, as a player, he has that right. He's been that good for the Packers. He has the right to do that. And the Packers thought that he was the most important one, so they signed on the dotted line because they felt like they had to, and it's all thanks to frickin' Bill O'Brien down in Houston.
Yes, that's a really interesting connection you just brought up there. And while that story is funny, it's also not funny because we expected Bakhtiari to be 18 million. So now you're tacking on another 5 after that, and it just makes signing anyone else really, really questionable. And while I'm excited for Bakhtiari, I'm also now really nervous on how the rest of these contracts are going to pan out.
Yes, and now is It's an interesting time, and I feel like we kind of hit the high points of this Jags game. You know, we talked about MVS. We talked about how good the stats were. Rodgers had a good game. 24 of 34, 325. I mentioned that 9.6 yard average, 2 touchdowns, the 1 interception, and just 1 sack given up. We mentioned kind of the high points. The defense played well enough, still need to work on tackling, but 20 points against any NFL offense, I don't care what offense it is, 20 points is not terrible. But now it's like, okay, let's talk about the contract situation, I guess, because what does this mean with that number? I'm like, I don't know how they sign anyone else, because yes, I know Russ Ball is going to make it an impossibly low number for next year. And Russ Ball, we all know when the new media deal comes out, the salary cap's going to skyrocket. But what does that mean for the next year or two before that actually happens? That is going to be something that we definitely have to think about. What do you think? Do you think this changes anything? Do you think we're going to be able to do anything else in signing our own free agents?
I think we're going to have to make some very unpopular moves. I mean, we've talked about the Smith brothers a lot, and to relate this to the Jags game, we saw the Jaguars, especially in the first half, run at Preston Smith. And guess what? It was working. It was working. And then sure enough, on the last drive, all of a sudden we have a pass rush. Rashawn Gary gets a sack. Either Preston or Zadarius got a sack there. I don't remember which one. While their end stat line looks good, they were pretty much obsolete the entire game, just like they have been all season. So there are outs in their contracts, and right now, if you want to bring a Kevin King, an Aaron Jones, a Corey Linsley, those guys are more important than anything the Smith brothers have done in year 2 here. So, very unpopular opinion, one or both of them has to go if we want to keep some of these guys.
Yeah, I have a hard time believing the Packers are going to let Zadarius go. Even though he's making more of the money, and yeah, he hasn't been playing well this year or as good as he did last year, he's still playing better than Preston Smith and playing closer to the money than Preston Smith is. I think I've mentioned this on previous podcasts. Packers would save half of his contract for Preston Smith if they cut him. It'll be $8 million dead cap. The cap hit for next year would be $16 million. So it is a pretty easy out for Preston Smith, saving $8 million. That's almost the difference we're talking about with David Bakhtiari's number, going from 18, 20, 15 to 20, somewhere in there, to 23 mil a year. And actually, I saw that with incentives and different things, he can be up to 23.5 million a year on average. So that's some real money, and it's definitely going to be interesting to try to figure out what that means for this team next year, because people are going to have to go, and I think Preston is one of them that just might be a strictly financial decision that they might have to move on from him. And what does that mean for this team? That means number 52, Rashawn Gary's got to step up. That means Jonathan Garvin, who I've seen flashes from this year, he hasn't played much, but he needs to play well starting next year. Then at that point, it's definitely, this number is definitely going to have big ramifications. I do think, in my opinion, David Bakhtiari was number 1 for me on the list. It was David Bakhtiari, and then kind of the rest of them start down here. But David Bakhtiari was way up there on my list, head and shoulders above the rest of the potential free agents that are coming out of Green Bay. So I get it, and I agree with the decision, but that number is going to make it pretty hard to sign other free agents. And like you said, they're going to have to make some tough decisions, and a lot of them might be unpopular with what's happening moving forward here. Preston Smith is the main one I think of having an out. Billy Turner is another guy. And then also Adrian Amos. I think they all kind of signed similar type of structure deals where that year 2 was the out point. or one of the out points, they could probably get out of it pretty easily in year 3 as well. For Billy Turner, the 2021 cap hit would be just over 8 mil. The dead cap would be 4.5. So that one is like, okay, for 3.5 million, would you like the versatility and the depth on your offensive line? Maybe you would. In 2022, that difference goes to closer to 6 million. So maybe that is some place where you're trying to get an out. Like I said, I don't think it's going to be Za'Darius. I just think he's too big for this team. He's just too good. But it will be interesting to see what happens moving forward that with this team as a whole. It'll definitely be interesting, and hopefully this team comes out to play and we don't have any more of these games where the team just looks uninterested when they're playing. Tyler, do you have anything else about the free agent situation moving forward because of this big deal or this Jaguars game at all?
I mean, it's also like when you think of the other free agents like Corey Linsley, like the Packers have just been shuffling linemen around all year and everyone's been really rather successful, which kind of contraindicates like the Bakhtiari signing. Like they normally don't do something like that for someone who's going to be, how old is Bakhtiari? He's going to be like at the end of this contract, like what, 33, 34? If I had to guess, Trevor can look for sure, somewhere around there. But I feel really strong about the Packers' ability to replace a Linsley. And going into the season, I was like, oh, I really don't want to lose Kevin King, but he's barely played this year. And there's like a group out there on like Josh Jackson, like, oh, he's been fantastic. He's the shit. And then there's people like me who's like, I think he's okay. I'm not completely convinced yet. And then like Kadar Holman today, yeah, sure, it's good to see him out there going against a rookie quarterback, but you need to see him in more reps. So it's just kind of all rather confusing. And I guess the only good point is we still have like essentially little less than half of a season to figure all this out yet. So at least in the regular season. So in the next 8 weeks or so, a lot can happen that'll help shape our minds and change our opinions on that.
Yeah. So Bakhtiari signs that 4-year deal, again, worth $105.5 million. He is 29 right now, and actually fairly recently just turned 29. Towards the beginning of next season, a couple weeks into the season, he will turn 30. So that's kind of what we're looking at in terms of age. Yeah, the Packers don't typically do it, but this is different. It's just different with an all-pro, all-world type of left tackle like David Bakhtiari is. Some people say he's slipping a little bit. Sometimes, occasionally have slip-ups from here and here, but overall, I think David Bakhtiari is very consistently one of the best, if not the best, left tackle in the game. This Josh Jackson thing, I think right now I've been on the bandwagon of Kevin King is good, and if he stays healthy, he can be a good asset, and it would make sense paying him. Right now, I am to the point of Kevin King is not worth being re-signed. One, you look at the David Bakhtiari money, but then also you look at the salary cap, and you look at Josh Jackson's play, which hasn't been a huge dip from where Kevin King is when he's playing. So to me, the money that you'll have to spend on Kevin King, which is $6, $7, $8, $9, $10 million a year, I would rather spend that money on other free agents and pay, Josh Jackson his round 2 rookie deal and be ready to maybe draft a cornerback or 2 this year. Look at the future of, having to pay Devontae Adams and Jair Alexander and all of these different things. So to me, I think Kevin King has been put on the back burner, in my opinion. He had to stay healthy this year, and he hasn't been out there for a lot of the year. And Josh Jackson's play hasn't been terrible enough to be like, oh crap, we need Kevin King. We definitely need to see more progression from him. He needs to play better. I thought he's been playing better than he had previously this year, but it's still, I think, a notch lower than a Kevin King. But like I said, the difference I don't think will be worth paying, just because the salary cap's going to be tight. There's a lot of players you got to pay. And to me, this David Bakhtiari extension means you're probably not going to be paying Aaron Jones unless Russ Ball can work some magic, and it's probably Aaron Jones is willing to take a pay cut to stay in Green Bay.
Yeah, I get allocating your resources, and it's really just like the injury history with King that concerns me the most. Like, if he would have stayed healthy this year, like he did throughout 80 to 90% of last year, this is a different conversation. But unfortunately, it's not, and this is where we're at. And at this point, you just have to hope Kevin King is healthy for the stretch end of this season and can contribute in the postseason, because as much as we talk about early on, like the NFC, like the Packers being way up there number one, there's a lot of damn good teams in the NFC right now, and our defense is going to need to show up at some point when we play them, and Kevin King is going to play a part in that. So whether or not he's re-signed next year or not, I guess is kind of irrelevant. He just needs to get healthy and back out there for the sake of this 2020 team.
Yeah, I completely get what you're saying. That'll be definitely interesting to watch. One thing I did want to mention is, before we get out of here, one more thing about the Jaguar game. What the fuck happened to our special teams? We have been top 15 all year, per DVOA at least, in special teams and how they rank us and all that stuff. And what happened? It just seemed like the punt return game was terrible. Like, players didn't know when to catch it and when not to catch it. That big touchdown, Tyler, what the hell happened?
I don't know. Was Dexter Williams out there? No, he wasn't.
That was a low blow, man.
Yeah, I know. I saw, you can probably summarize it better than I can, but I saw you retweet something by Pat McAfee, of course, obviously really great punter, who explains the return there and how it's incorrect to say that he out punted his coverage and all this. So I thought that was a really good point. I'll let you elaborate on that.
Yes, I knew I was bringing up the special team, so I was trying to pull up that tweet. So his wording was, I will just read kind of what Pat McAfee said. So he quotes, "He outkicked his coverage is such a lazy way to blame the punter and not explain the coverage team's responsibilities. Now, should J.K. Scott have hit it that low and far? No. But also see 5 guys covering the exact same lane, and he's preaching, lane integrity here. Just like gap integrity on the rush defense, you got to maintain your gaps. Kick coverage, whether that be punts or kickoffs, you have a lane. This is something in high school everyone has to know special teams, and this is something they preach. You run down your, 10-yard, 5-yard wide section, and you run in that lane. You do not get out of it. You don't go try to make a play, because if you go make the play, that's great. But if you miss, now they have an easy lane to get up and start running. And he circles these 5 players that's literally 3 of them have both their feet on the hash marks. One of them has one of his foot on the hash mark. So, and they're all within, 10 yards of each other on the field, all in the same line. And then he also has Hunter Bradley, who's running down a little bit later, who's, a yard or 2 away from the hash. And he just circled it saying, this is what the issue was. If you put 5 guys like that, it's very easy for that returner to see, okay, they have everyone right here. I'm going to run this way because no one's covering where they need to be. And then on top of that, there's blockers there that can help create a wall of the guys that might be able to get to him. But it doesn't matter because they're so far out of their lane that they're not going to be able to get back. And if they would be able to get back, they have 2 guys that are just standing waiting for people to come through, knowing that there's no one on the other side of them where they can just wait for those guys. It was definitely something, and I tweeted it out, of I kind of thought when it kicked, I was like, damn, that was a far kick. And I saw how far he caught it, and I didn't see anyone on the coverage. I'm like, oh boy, here we go. And I honestly thought it was him out kicking the coverage. But then you see this graphic, and it's like, yeah, that is 100% on. It's, yeah, J.K. Scott probably shouldn't have done it that way, but it's a nasty wind day, and he was just trying to get the ball as far as he could down the field. And his punt team, or his coverage team, did not help him one bit. And that's definitely on the players, but it's also on the special teams coordinator, because this is some shit right here. This is not at all how this should be taught. Your team should never be in this situation. Definitely a frustrating play for us as Packer fans. And then after out kicking his coverage, poor J.K. Scott. I think he's still looking for his jock strap on the field. Oh my God, that was brutal.
Yeah, that was god awful. It's almost as bad as, I think on that return, it was Ty Summers who tried to tackle the guy's feet, and he hit the ground and still missed the returner by at least 2 feet or 2 yards. And I was like, you just dove to make it look somewhat good on film. Like, it was like, what are you doing?
and I think sometimes after that punt coverage, Pat McAfee also tweeted out that J.K. Scott just jump in the air so you don't get embarrassed like that next time. Like, go for the diving tackle. Just like, don't be. Here, I'll read the tweet to you. J.K. just has to throw his body there. Can't get shook if you're already in the air. I definitely agree. One last quick thing. Miles Jack had the worst flop I've ever seen in my life. That I legit said, who the fuck are you, LeBron James?
Yeah, he's definitely been watching way too much NBA, or soccer, or whatever those fairies do when they flop. But my God, that was pitiful.
That was terrible. All right, I think that's gonna be it for us. Definitely a weird game. A game that the Packers didn't show up in, but luckily they had the talent. The talent difference was pretty big here against these two teams. I mentioned it. I didn't think that it was going to be anywhere close unless the Jaguars play a good game, and they did. I thought overall they had a pretty solid game. And then the Packers just not playing. And I kept saying throughout the game, I'm just like, do you guys even want to play? Outside of the second quarter, I was like, I don't think they want to be there. I think they want to go home and sleep or something. It did not look good. And now it's happened a few times this year. And it's been every other week here now for 6 weeks that Packers didn't just show up. This week they got a little bit lucky that it was a team that, would probably prefer to lose as the front office. You'd probably like them to lose if you still have job security, because there is some great quarterbacks coming up, whether they get the first or second pick. If they get Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields, they're going to be sitting pretty here for many years to come. And that's something that, as a front office, as the owner, that you probably just want to sit back, not win that game. And these players, they don't care about that. These players are going out there to play for their livelihood. They're going out there showing pride and playing, and they played a good game. Just got edged out by a lifeless Packers team that did just barely enough to win this football game. We need to start seeing more consistency just in terms of effort from this Green Bay Packers football team, because today was not good, and it needs to improve big time if we want to see a deep run into the postseason like the talent says they should be able to do on this team. Make sure you guys continue to check out all of our social channels, to check out all of our content. Again, at Trilogy_pod for Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Also find us on YouTube, as we are posting extra content on there. But until next time, go Pack Go.
Beers are on Bakhtiari.